Hey, I've had the Sony a7S Mark III for about a week now, and this is what I think of it so far. Before we get into the video, be sure to like the video if you end up liking it, and subscribe for more videos on the a7S Mark III because there's so much to talk about. Alright, so the very first thing that I noticed right when I put my lens on is how much of a difference full frame makes. It makes such a difference. I don't know if it's this camera specifically or just going from an APS-C camera to a full frame camera, but the image quality immediately went up so much. So if you have an APS-C camera and you want to upgrade to a full frame camera, it might not be this one specifically, but I highly recommend doing it. The jump in quality is a lot larger than I was expecting. I was not expecting the quality increase to be like this much because it's ridiculously good. Another thing about full frame is how wide everything is. I don't know, I guess I don't have that much experience with full frame. So maybe that's why my mind is so blown, because it is so wide. Look at this. Boom. Okay, enough of me fanboying over my new love for full frame. Let's get into some stuff about this camera specifically. So the menu on this camera and like the small features that they add, I've really been enjoying that so far. The fact that you can have a red box when you are recording is extremely helpful. Another thing that I found very helpful is, of course, the flip out screen. I don't feel like I rely on having a monitor 100% of the time. I can actually do a shoot without a monitor because the screen flips and articulates and I can actually see it when I'm filming, especially when I'm filming low angle shots. I can actually see the screen pretty good, so I'm not reliant on an external monitor as much, I don't think, which is definitely good. And there are so many customizable buttons on this camera that I have not utilized all of them quite yet. And what this means is that in my function menu, I have a lot of open space, so I can have some pretty good things there. For example, I can have silent mode on and off, so if I don't want to hear my beep, or if I do want to hear my beep, I can very easily change that. But if you want a full overview of my beginning settings for this camera, there's a link in the description to my settings video. Another thing that I have in that menu is active steady shot, and this is a lot better than I was really expecting. I don't know why, because I've heard so much good stuff about it. I mainly use it when I'm handheld, obviously. It crops in, but the crop in isn't that extreme. Like, it's not really that noticeable. But when you're handheld, it really gets rid of like the handheld look, and it gets you like a more natural handheld look, like something you would see in a movie. Another thing with this active steady shot is it takes your gimbal footage to the absolute next level, and to a point where it might be a little bit too stable. Because you got to think, you have the in-body image stabilization, and then the stabilization of the gimbal, and then the added digital stabilization of active steady shot. So all of these things together make your footage extremely stable, which is kind of, it's kind of mind-blowing a little bit. So the next thing that I noticed very immediately is that I do not have enough storage for this camera. There are 3 different file formats. There's S, HS, and SI. And this all depends on how much compression you need for your footage, whether you need it not compressed or very compressed. And that kind of depends on what you're using, since the quality doesn't differ that much. So if you're doing like green screen footage, or if you're just doing vlogs, obviously you can use some compressed footage. If you're just vlogging, you don't need that much information. I want to get the highest quality possible, so whenever I can, I'm filming in SI. This also helps me editing, since your computer doesn't have to decode as much since it's not compressed that much. But the drawback of this is file size. I use 125 gigabyte Lexar cards, and I don't have enough space. The full 125 gigabytes of storage will give me like 45 minutes recording in 4K SI, which is so much storage space. So I would highly recommend you either get a whole bunch of these Lexar 125 gig cards, or even better, if you invest in the 256 gigabyte ProGrade cards with this camera, because you're definitely gonna need that storage. And I'm not saying to film in SI all of the time, but this camera eats up storage. Okay, so I know that S-Log3 is like all the rage now with this camera. It's like a big thing. I noticed that it's not the best in low light. So there is some noise in low light, and I was not expecting that. I just thought I could slap on S-Log3 and be good, because that is what all the hype was about. So currently I'm filming in HLG2. This was my preferred picture profile on my A6600, so I figured it would be a pretty good one. I definitely like HLG. I just have to figure out what the best one for this camera would be, if it is 2 or 3 or 1. But let me know if this looks pretty good. I can switch it over. Let's see. So now this is S-Log3 right now. So you can definitely see that there is a little bit more noise in the shadows. But if you go ahead and put something like S-Log2 on, which we have right here, this is S-Log2, there is a little bit less noise in the shadows. So that is something that really surprised me. I thought that I was gonna be in S-Log3 like 100% of the time. I was just never gonna switch out of it, but obviously that's not the case. If I am in a low light situation, then I might go into S-Log2 or maybe even HLG2. But if I do have a lot of light available, if I'm in the daylight, S-Log3 is probably gonna be my preferred choice. And that's about it. And so this was a super quick video. I just wanted to share my first week thoughts and like some stuff that surprised me with this camera. Are you using this camera? What kind of things did you notice? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know if I helped you at all with anything, maybe getting a different SD card. But that is, that's about it. So like the video if you end up liking it, and subscribe for all this A7S III content. All right.